Oh, well, hello, VC.
I'm liking what I'm seeing so far here, Mike. Hello from
Yeah.
Canada.
Hello from Canada. Hello from United States. Mike Guitar Player 07 here, coming at you live with another vinyl record video. And today we have the one and only record ma'am in the VC, Rachel the Music Man.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for hosting me. Thanks for inviting me on. I'm just thrilled to be here.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you. And of course, I have the Beatles England book as the opening book. Like you have the book in your intro. I felt that was appropriate.
Yeah, I do the book thing. Now, on my screen right now, I'm just seeing my little picture up there. I'm in front of Abbey Road. Should I change that or can you see
Yeah, I
me?
was about to say, did your camera go out for a second there? Because I'm not seeing your face. I'm seeing your logo.
Well, let's just start the video. There we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Hello, Hollywood.
Hello, Vietnam.
Yeah, for sure. Robin Williams, the late, great Robin Williams.
Yes,
So tell the folks what we're doing here.
absolutely. So what me and Rachel have decided to do is the VC is full of knowledge. There's a whole bunch of albums that people don't know, this, that, and the other thing. So I thought it'd be fun for me and Rachel to show albums that I thought Rachel would enjoy, and Rachel to show albums that she thinks I will enjoy. And we might know some of these, we might not. We'll find out. But pretty much, I know that Rachel is wanting to dig into the world of jazz, so I chose a little bit of jazz-oriented albums. And Rachel also loves genealogy, as we all know. So I chose an album that was inspired by that. So pretty much, if you don't know who Rachel is, she's been here since January of 2020, and
I'm a newbie.
she's a newbie, and she's even surpassed me by this point. Not at this competition on subscribers, but she's surpassed me. That's how that shows how great she's doing out here. So
No, it just means I have a big family and a big. I have like 400 people that I'm in contact with on Facebook. So I think that skews my numbers quite a bit.
You're one of the VC members that I don't have connections with on Facebook yet. That needs to change. But
yeah, we'll do it for sure.
So pretty much that's what the whole ideology is behind this video. And Rachel, I know you always like doing shout outs, and I know that you said you had a shout out you wanted to give. And also, since you're the guest, I will let you choose your first record first.
Okay, yeah, let's do the shout out because somebody's been on my heart and mind is Tony. He has a channel called Two from the Trunk. He's brand new. He's just entered my pilgrimage contest. You know what that's all about. You're entered. The big draw for that is tomorrow. But the name is Tony from Two from the Trunk, and he's just wonderful. And if you want to know what Two from the Trunk means, you'll have to watch his contest entry video. But hello, Tony, and everyone out there, please consider subscribing to Tony's channel. Really nice guy, former educator. And the VC's loaded with former teachers and educators. So I wanted to do that for Tony. Okay, Mike, let's dive in.
Absolutely. Have you talked about Tony's channel before? Because I recognize that name.
He's new, and I have mentioned him on. I've given him maybe one shout out on my channel.
Okay, so that's where I've heard it before.
Yeah, he's fresh on my mind here. So the first album I have was recently discussed by American Layman. Now, American, of course, just appeared on your own show for your hair bands extravaganza, which I saw. And of course, I too suffer from the, hey, you know all the trivia and all the minutiae and details about all this music, which drives our collective families mad. But without further ado, an album that American recently showed. And going full circle, I want to make sure that this is on. There we go. Cover up, Rachie. And, when it comes to me, it's a bit like Tootsie, where they go close up. Oh, not too close. But anyway, here's Klaatu's wonderful 347 Eastern. And it's got it on the side here. In fact, yeah, it's rubbed off on this one. But this is their debut album. So do you have this album in your collection?
I do not. It's one that has been on my radar that I've wanted, but I've heard of it, don't know much about it, but it's just such an iconic album cover, and just that alone has me interested.
Okay, so I'll give you the story about it. Here's why I picked it for you. because like myself, I know you're a Beatles fan.
Hmm.
The story on these guys is this debuted in 1976. When it first came out, everyone thought these guys were the Beatles because they didn't give any names or credits to who had been on the album. It turns out that it was three folks named John Woloshuk, which is like a Ukrainian name for sure. And then there's Dee Long and Ken Draper. So they were later revealed, like by their third it was their third album, Sir Army Suit, where they finally revealed who they were. I just want to make sure this is up. Now, for our friends that are watching, I have to kind of occasionally look over here. This is where my monitor is. Here's where my camera is. But I broke my screen some time ago, so I have it over here. So I can see Mike's lovely visage by just glancing over there. Anyway, so back to these guys. So very Beatlesque. The reason people thought they were the Beatles is because there are a lot of Beatle tropes in here. French horns with a staccato kind of reminiscent of Penny Lane. It's got elements in the song, especially in the song Sub Rosa Subway, which reminds us of George Harrison's It's All Too Much from a Yellow Submarine soundtrack. And it's got that it's a crunching, melodic, Moog inspired sound that people that are familiar with It's All Too Much will understand. So very Beatlesque. A lot of fun elements about this album. First of all, there's a little mouse right there. Getting closer. So what happened now, so I'm on Wikipedia, I'm looking a bit, and I've followed the band before, watched them do interviews, and there's a few online that you can see. But what's interesting is, I guess at the end of the first recording, a little squeak appeared, and they didn't know what the squeak was. It sounded like it was a little mouse. So there he is over here. So while that was going on in the recording, the next day or very shortly thereafter, they had sent a fellow out saying, we wanted a Beatrix Potter. So that's like Brer Fox and Brer Rabbit, all those characters. They didn't know what would be presented, but featuring prominently was the little mouse. So they took this as a serendipitous sign that the mouse should become their mascot. So this album ends with the little mouse squeak. And it's at the end, a little neutrino. And if you play the album, you'll hear at the very end, it'll go, eek. And so there's the little squeak. And then on their second album called Hope, which is a concept album, which is kind of interesting because I know you're a fan of concept music, particularly through Dream Theater. Yeah, I think that's the name of the band, correct?
Yes.
Good, good for me. Okay, so
my Alexa just got a notification. It just made a loud noise. I don't know if you got that on camera or not.
It may have been a mouse squeak. So
it was.
So at the end of the, and now just make sure this held up. So at the end of the first album, we hear the little mouse squeak, and then Hope, the second album, opens with a mouse squeak. And on all subsequent albums from the band, a little mouse, their little mouse mascot appeared. This group had 5 albums in total before they disbanded. Because they were mysterious, there was no name given for the band. When it was finally revealed that they were not the Beatles, there was quite a bit of blowback against the band, and people felt that they had been somewhat deceived or put on by the band. It was purely unintentional, and it came the whole thing, it came about because some disc jockey, I'm going to say he was in New Jersey, but but some disc jockey had said, oh, this is the Beatles coming together, under this assumed name, because Ringo had had his album Goodnight Vienna, where he had the picture of himself as Klaatu and the big robot behind him.
Yes.
Of course, Klaatu Barada Niktu, the 3 famous words spoken from the great film, The Day the Earth Stood Still. 1951 science fiction film, a great movie, really an all-time science fiction classic. So they thought, oh yeah, Ringo had done the Day the Earth Stood Still, and then of course with so many Beatlesque elements in the songs, particularly Sub Rosa Subway, and also Calling Occupants. Now, Richard Carpenter was a big fan of Klaatu. And then he, of course, with Karen, his sister Karen, recorded a copy of Calling Occupants, which was originally featured here. It debuted a year later, and I think it reached as high as number 10 and number 1 in Ireland. So there you have it, Klaatu. I think you'd like them.
Yeah, I
Oh,
think so too.
one last thing. Sorry to interrupt. I got my disc. I have them, like I have this one both on, hold it up here.
Oh yeah, there it is.
So I have it on CD. And then here's Sir Army Suit. Now, the mouse doesn't appear on the cover, but if we open it up and we go here.
There he is.
And there's their little mascot. So Klaatu is my first band recommendation for you, Mike. Go ahead, hit me, buddy.
Yeah, I liked that. I love the artwork. I love the little mouse. I love that old school, like cartoony, like with the mushrooms and butterflies and all that stuff. I don't know. I like stuff like that.
Yeah, 1970s kitsch.
All right.
Okay, show me something fun.
All right. So my first pick for you, the first two albums are jazz oriented. So you just recently got an album, the most well-known album by a group called the Dave Brubeck Quartet called Time Out. So they also had a follow-up album called Time Further Out, which was good if you ever are interested in checking it out. I think I sent that in an email that I gave you the list of. But I decided to go a different route in regards to the Dave Brubeck Quartet, which is one that is very cool and is a different take on music that we already know and love. Dave Digs Disney by the Dave Brubeck Quartet.
Oh, okay. I recognize some happy characters there.
Yeah, we got Donald Duck, we got Mickey, we got Pluto, and some various birds. And this was on the Columbia Records label. This is an original mono pressing from 1957. Due to the fact that something that I don't know if you know this yet about the world of jazz, but the players who play on albums are key. So if you pay attention to the people, the personnel, then you can see, oh, I like that about this aspect of this album. So then you go out and find other albums by that same player or is featured with that player. So on this album, it features Dave Brubeck on the keys, Paul Desmond on the alto saxophone, has Joe Morello on the drums, and Norman Bates on the bass, which I think is the exact same lineup as the Time Out album. And this album features songs from Pinocchio, Snow White, and Alice in Wonderland. And I think there's another one or two ones from other classic Disney tunes. It's only 1957, so there wasn't a whole heck of a lot of Disney movies out yet, but they were all fantastic and classics. On the reissue version of this album that came out, I want to say in the early 2000s, I don't own it yet, but it's one I want. They also the reissue had a song or two from Cinderella. And what's interesting is at this time in music history, any musician who was doing Disney tunes was kind of considered subpar, and it was considered below the musical abilities and talents of those musicians, especially jazz musicians. And for many, I assume years, and I assume at live shows and band practices, it doesn't really, I couldn't find any exact times of when these tunes were performed before this album, but they were playing these tunes a while. And then one day, the Dave Brubeck family, I don't know if it was with the group or if it was just his personal family with his wife and whoever else was with them, took a family trip to Disney. And then during that Disney trip, he called up his producer and was like, I want to do this album. And the producer was a little hesitant because it was a risk, because as I said, that this time Disney music was considered subpar for anybody other than Disney to do.
Like too commercial or something.
Yeah, and it was a major financial risk and also risked the popularity of Dave Brubeck. However, once this album was created, it inspired people like Miles Davis and John Coltrane to do Disney tunes on their albums. For example, I can't think of any Miles Davis examples off the top of my head, but John Coltrane did an entire album called My Favorite Things.
Which is Mary Poppins.
I believe that is correct, yes. I couldn't remember if it was Mary Poppins or Sound of Music, so I could be very wrong. But I believe Mary Poppins
Oh,
is
oh,
correct.
you know what? Yeah, it might be The Sound of Music. It could
Oh,
be Julie Andrews. Well, Julie Andrews in both films, of course. So
that's true.
you might be
That's
right
why.
too. It might be The Sound of Music.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
either
bet you it is. I bet you it is The Sound of
way,
Music.
you know what? It is. But either way, they were inspired to do uh, Disney tunes either way, and my favorite things was a terrible example. But
No, it's a good example. I understand for sure.
and it's cool because it has details about the band and all that stuff, which is something that's really great about jazz albums. Is they all have, at least these classic ones from Columbia and Blue Note, always have a good history and stuff that talks about the album. And also, Columbia Records always had something interesting about their new stereo equipment and the high fidelity and all that stuff at the time. And let's just forget about the fact that someone destroyed the album with their name. However, it's just a cool thing. And I really like how they do one of my favorite classic Disney tunes on this. They do a version of Hi Ho from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which is
Oh, yeah.
one of my favorite Disney tunes,
Yeah.
on top of many others. So Dave Digs Disney has picked one for me.
Mike, what's the label on that one? Is that one of those cat's eye labels?
Oh, yes. I could pull that out for you
Yeah, please.
because it's an original 6i on Columbia.
Oh, yeah. See, I love those. I think
Me
it's
too.
one of the most attractive labels. In
Me
fact,
too.
I think we should do some sort of thread where, you go pick your 5 most attractive, not most unusual or anything, just what looks nice. There's such a symmetry, and they've caught on with they're very, very popular within the VC, from
Right.
what I understand.
No, you're completely correct. And what's great about this album is it's an original mono 6i from 1957, and I got this thing for $1.
Oh, unbelievable. I love getting deals like that. It's really hard at where I live to get like a dollar album anywhere. You really have to work out. The dollar is almost extinct up here in the Great White North.
Okay.
Yeah, so great pick. And yeah, for sure, I'd like that. And I think I'm on record somewhere in one of my discussions that Dave Brubeck is quickly becoming my very favorite jazz artist. Maybe because it is so accessible and there's a lot of melody in his stuff, kind of smooth, easy listening jazz. And I really like it. I'm not as much a fan as a staccato beep, 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 that kind of stuff where it's really kind of a harsher sound, bebop. I
Okay.
like it just a little smoother. So, that little,
Oh, yeah.
give me one of Mazzy's martinis, let's go with that. Okay, should I go for number 2?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So, number 2. Oh, I got to go here. Now, this is a real story. Okay, so lift her up. Now, unfortunately, because of the way cameras work, the writing's all backwards on this. Is it backwards for you?
No, it shows the left blank, you walk away, Renee, pretty ballerina perfectly.
Okay, great. Now, here's where I have to hold it up. This is where I want to give a shout out to our friend John at Baggy Hi-Fi. He's in the UK, and he recently did an upload entitled Baroque Pop or Baroque Rock Music. And the left bank fully falls within that parameter. Have you heard of this band?
No, I have never heard of this one. You'll see me looking down at my keyboard. I'm writing notes as we go along.
Okay, good. So this is another highly recommended album from you, for you. This is, of course, the CD version. This is their debut album. Just make sure that
Okay.
nice thing. And then the back. So the big hits here were Walk Away Renee and Pretty Ballerina. There was a really fascinating story about this band. Now, the creative force behind it, I'm going to argue, is Mike Brown. Now, Mike's real name was Mike Lukovsky, spelled Look of Sky. So my First Nations cousins would call him Look of Sky, but but it's Lukovsky. And his dad was Harry Lukovsky, and he was a concert violinist and a composer. And you can find actually Michael's dad. Now, Michael's the keyboardist for the band, and he co-wrote Walk Away Renee, their biggest hit. They followed that up with Pretty Ballerina, both featured on this album. So a lot of interpersonal conflict with the band, especially once they broke big with Walk Away Renee. It tells a great story about, there's different versions of this, so some controversy. But Mike says that he wrote it. Now, Mike's passed away. We lost him in 2015. And he passed away. I got a note here. He passed away in Englewood, New Jersey. So I thought when these guys first came out, because of their Beatles sound, that these guys were English. But no, they're from New York. And but Mike passed away in 2015 in Englewood, New Jersey. So probably not too far from where you are.
About 40 minutes to an hour away, and one of my professors lives in Englewood.
Well, there you go. He's in the same state, for goodness sakes. So Mike had a crush on the girlfriend of Tim Finn. I think it's Tim, could be Tom, but yeah, I think it's Tom Finn, who was the bass player for the band. So his girlfriend, and I've got her name written down here, was Renee Flatten-Cam. Now, Renee Flatten-Cam is a musician in her own right. So a guitar player, she's published records, she's a music educator. She does medieval music of all things. So really interesting. And of course, this Baroque rock pop, it's really pop, that these guys did is so melodic. And if you're on that desert island, that proverbial, we all talk, you got 5 records, you're on the desert island. Walk Away Renee, you could not do any better than taking that particular song with you. It's magical. So the band broke up. Mike ended up joining another band called Stories. Now he joined Ian Lloyd in that band. Before Stories broke big, and they broke big, with a song called Brother Louie. Do you know the song Brother Louie?
Yeah, isn't it like the Louie, 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 Louie? Yeah,
we're in the cosmic realm. Yes, we're in Brian's cosmic realm once you start singing that. Such a great song, Brother Louie. But Mike left the band before that. But Ian Lloyd, he continued on 1973, and the song was originally produced and covered by Hot Chocolate, who had a number of hits themselves in their own right. But yeah, I always liked that song, Louie Louie. So the Left Bank having a lot of influence. The controversy about the song not being about Renee comes from the co-writer, and that's Tony Sassoni. So Tony Sassoni co-wrote it. He says, no, it was inspired. The name Renee is purely random, and it just refers to the Beatles' Michelle. But a caveat on that, or a caveat, a cautionary note, is that Mike is on the credits for Pretty Ballerina, and his friend Tony is not. So perhaps there is some truth about Mike having written it. He pined for his bass player's girlfriend. It was an unrequited love, unfulfilled, but she performs the role of muse perfectly, and Mike's soul rose to song in order to honor her. So second choice, the Left Bank. Don't Walk Away, Renee, Pretty Ballerina. So I highly recommend this thing. I think you'd like it.
Yeah, that's one I definitely have not even heard of. So
Okay, I'm glad. We're doing good then.
Yeah. All right, so my pick is a jazz fusion album.
Yeah.
And this is it's not out there like free jazz, but it's out there. It's a little odd at first, but once you understand the concept behind the album, you'll understand why. So this is Chick Corea's The Mad Hatter.
Okay, Chick Corea, very famous.
This is my white label promo copy that I got of this album on Polydor. I'm very happy to have it. It's one of my two top favorite Chick Corea albums. And this is a now 1978 concept album that was inspired by the concept of Alice in Wonderland.
Ergo, our title, The Mad Hatter.
And the quirky nature of this album. Um, so it was interesting. You talked about the Moog synthesizer. This features the Moog synthesizer on it, which is kind of unique to jazz fusion in the jazz realm, at least, and also features the Rhodes electric piano that is not really seen in traditional jazz. On top of
Mm-hmm.
the traditional tenor sax, drums, acoustic piano, and double bass. But also, what's cool about this is that we also have a bass or a brass section, excuse me, and a string section, which is not always traditional of the jazz fusion world. We lost your camera again. We have just your logo again.
Oh, okay, thank you. Let's start her up again. Goes to sleep on me. Hi, everybody, I'm back. Go ahead, Mike.
So, yeah, so that's some of the instrumentation that you will find on this album. And another well-known jazz musician was also featured on this. There's not a lot of notable jazz featured artists on this Chick Corea album. Actually, there's only two. One of them being Herbie Hancock, which is featured on the last, it was the last song on the album called The Mad Hatter's Rhapsody, which, I mean, how cool is that title? And, I'm going to put this down for a second because for those who don't know Herbie Hancock, he was most well known for his jazz fusion album Headhunters, which featured the song Chameleon and Watermelon Man. And he also went off to do some, which I don't own that album on physical format yet. It's a jazz grail of mine. And, but he also did an album, I'm going to take this out of the thing here. He also did an album in the 80s called Future Shock, which features a song, A Rocket, which is in a handful of 80s.
Huge. Yeah. That was my first introduction to Herbie Hancock because that rocket just exploded like a rocket. It just took off. Incredible.
Right. And this album was the first in a 3-part series that Herbie Hancock did. And at first, I liked Future Shock, but the other two, Sound System, and I forget what the third one was called at the moment, I didn't absolutely love it. But then I grew accustomed to it as I listened to him more. But yeah, Future Shock and Headhunters. But you're asking, Mike, Herbie Hancock is known for jazz fusion, 100%, but he also was a Blue Note musical artist before going off to doing the jazz fusion world in the 50s and 60s, doing both traditional jazz as himself as a band leader and as a sideman. And a great classic example of that is on Freddie Hubbard's Hubtones album. Here, let me pull that paper out for you. This is a Blue Note release, and this is one of Blue Note's most iconic album covers. If you don't know this album, I would recommend this album as well. Freddie Hubbard.
I don't know it. I'm a newbie. I don't know it.
Yeah, Freddie Hubbard is a trumpet player. This is the only album by him I know at the moment. But Herbie Hancock plays the piano on this in a more traditional jazz format. But back to Chick Corea. So, his wife that he married in 1972 is a singer by the name of Gail Morin. And she was in a jazz fusion group called the Monty Vishnu Orchestra. Now, I don't know anything by that group. I've never listened to them. It's a group that after I did the research on Gail, I am now wanting to check out. But it's a jazz fusion group. And the jazz fusion style in her vocals is quite predominant on both this album and the Chick Corea album, My Spanish Heart, and Chick Corea's album, The Leprechaun. And she has a very unique vocal style. And I like some of that avant-garde stuff at times. And vocals like this it's not Yoko Ono, but like it's like a fine medium between Yoko Ono and traditional, I guess, for a lack of better way to put it.
But Yoko, certainly avant-garde is what generally is the term we use to describe, her various shriekings and goings-ons.
Yes, and Gail was also featured on a couple Return to Forever albums, which was the band that Chick Corea had before Mad Hatter. And I just love the teapot and all this on the back, going along with the Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, it's very nice album design. I agree.
And the lyric sheet has all this fantastic stuff. I just love how well thought out the production of these are. You don't get this in a digital age, my friends. And of course, I have to show off the white label promo.
Very nice indeed, my friend. Yeah. Good find, Mike.
So that
How'd
was,
you pick it up? How'd you get that one?
I was at a local record store looking for jazz during my introduction to the world of jazz, and Chick Corea was one of the first people I discovered. And I was looking for the album The Leprechaun and the Mad Hatter. And uh, I found both of them within a week period. And I found it in a jazz bin for uh, under $10.
Wow. Good deal. Really good deal. And the vinyl, how is that?
Oh, very good condition.
So it's quiet.
Oh, very.
I love to hear that. Awesome, Mike. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Should I go?
Oh, yes.
All right.
I'd be sad if you didn't.
Oh, so I got to go to, me. Now, I'm one of these people, Mazzy tells a story where he got rid of a lot of his records. He was in the industry, of course, like he worked at record stores and a lot of contact. And so he got rid of like 1,000 albums or something in the 90s, early 90s, late 80s, when we thought that CDs were going to rule the world. And that turned out not to be the case. But fortunately, he was able to keep the vast majority of what he owned. For me, everything went. So I had bootlegs. Chris Profi just did a thing on bootlegs this morning. I had bootlegs. I had about a dozen Beatle bootlegs. But so I got rid of all my records, and then I went into CDs, and then I moved and I got rid of all my CDs. So I'm rebuilding. I started rebuilding with CDs, and then I saw Ron Beaudry's channel. That got me back into vinyl. So as a result, whenever you're seeing my videos, it's always a combination of CDs and records. So I have got to present a CD. This is Michelle Pagliaro. Have you heard of Michelle Pagliaro?
The name sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with the works.
Okay, great. This means I'm batting 3 for 3.
Yeah.
So
have I been 3 for 3 or 2 for 2 so far?
Yeah, I don't have any of those albums.
Perfect.
This is great. I'm just going to open it up here and hopefully not lose the CD inside. Hold it up, make sure. And there's Michel on the back. So he comes to prominence in the 1970s. He's a Quebec, Canada artist. His first language is French, but you would never notice or know from the sounds of this album here. So the big hits. Now, he doesn't have the musical legs, in my opinion, to, I wouldn't recommend his entire discography, but a greatest hits, and in particular, this greatest hits, you cannot go wrong with. What the Hell I've Got is one of the songs. Rain Shower's kind of nice. Lovin' You Ain't Easy is my favorite off of this thing. And, really I should play a bit of it at some point, when I'm not doing this on my channel, and just give you a shout out. Some Sing, Some Dance is also fantastic. And then he does a very nice cover of Dock of the Bay. So nice, in fact, that it doesn't really offer anything new. Oh, I just went off.
Yeah. I guess your computer just goes to screensaver mode and turns on the camera.
Yeah, I think it goes to sleep on me or something like that. So I apologize for that.
No, we're good.
Something I'll have to work. You're the first time I've ever done this. So, lots of bugs to work out, I'm sure. But Dock of the Bay, he doesn't offer anything really new over what Otis Redding did. So, but it's still such a nice song. And because it's not so different from Otis's version, if you like Otis, you'll like this. But Lovin' You Ain't Easy, boy, is this power pop perfection. It's just jingly jangly, addictive, poppy joy. And it's audio candy, my friend. Audio candy we're talking here. So Michel Pagliaro, all the songs are in English, although he also had, a dozen or so French language hits, but this is all in English. This is a greatest hits pack, and I cannot recommend it enough for fans of power pop, but because it's so Beatley with the backup vocals are just excellent. It's just and chock full of hooks. This guy's got a real gift for musical hooks. So again, I recommend this one to you. I pick it because I think you might like it, because if you like the Beatles, there's probably no way in hell that you're ever not going to enjoy Michel Pagliaro. So I recommend him.
Okay, and yeah,
Hey,
that because Jangle Pop and Power Pop, you hear Hannah Domheinsberg talk about a lot. I actually just told her recently. You always talk about it. I actually should probably check out some of these groups. So
now is Hannah? You mean the Omaha introvert?
yes,
Yeah, she started that whole thread that took off. And another one on that is Brian in the Cosmic Realm, Cosmic Vinyl. Brian's a big power pop guy. So yeah, definitely check out, and you know Brian, I know, but definitely look in on some of his power pop presentations.
okay, fantastic.
Next up.
Next up, this is fantastic. All right, so this is a guy who you don't generally consider in the realm of doing an album full of pop standards in a jazzy way. However, this outlaw country artist in 1977, for his 22nd album release, put out an album called Stardust, and that gentleman's Willie Nelson.
No, I know of the album. I've never owned it, but I know the album. And Willie made a lot of, it was well received when it came out.
Yes, contrary to belief. And this is one of my favorite Willie Nelson albums. And this is one of the first ones that actually introduced me to Willie Nelson, ironically enough, because usually everybody goes out and is like, oh, I want the outlaw country aspect of them. Sure, I know On the Road Again and Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain and all that, but this is the album that kind of started me off, because I just saw this in the library one day, wanted to borrow it, and I listened to it, loved it, and then got it on vinyl record not too long after. We lost the camera again.
Yeah, I just noticed that.
Yeah, it's okay.
Keep going.
And yeah, this is solely an album of pop standards. So it has a song, Stardust, of course, and a song called Blue Skies, Unchained Melody, which was made popular by the Righteous Brothers.
Yeah, very famous.
He has a song on here called Georgia on My Mind, which is a traditional hit, which he actually won the Grammy for Best Male Country Vocal Performance in 1979, a couple years after this album was released for that tune. And then there's a song on here called Moonlight in Vermont, which I don't know too much about. However, that song was arranged by a gentleman named Booker T, also known as Booker T and the MGs, because that was Willie Nelson's neighbor, and he asked him to arrange a version of that tune for him. So the Green Onions master arranged Moonlight in Vermont for Willie Nelson. And
very cool.
Due to the fact that Willie Nelson is considered an outlaw country artist, that's what he established himself as ever since mid to late 1950s when he started. This was risky and controversial, just like the Dave Diggs Disney album. The Columbia record label executives felt it was not necessarily going to be great to do, but allowed it to happen. And the risk ended up paying off, because this album ended up peaking at #1 on the Billboard Top Country Album charts in the United States, and also #1 on the Canadian RPM Country Album charts. I had to throw in the Canadian stuff for you. And
gotta do it.
Absolutely. And what's so amazing about this is the fact that 2 years prior, Willie Nelson released his most popular and well-known album, or one of the highest well-known albums in the world of country music as a whole, called Red-Headed Stranger, which is a country outlaw concept album. And for the time, in the world of what country music was like putting a punk album with the name country genre on it. Changed the way country music was.
Innovative.
Very much so. And what also made it kind of wild that he put out a pop standards album is in the same year, a little earlier in the year before this album came out, he did an album with another outlaw country artist by the name of Waylon Jennings. Now I have this on vinyl record from my grandfather's collection, but I pulled out the CD version. And it's an album called Willie and Waylon. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you might know the tune Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys, which was a big hit.
Massive. Yeah.
And that outlaw country and this all in the same year, I mean, it's wild. And
now, so what year was that, Mike?
This was 1977.
77.
Yes, 77, 78, yeah. And in 1984, this album became triple platinum. However, by 2002, the album became quintuple. I don't know,
Wow.
quintuple platinum, and in 2015 would end up in the Grammy Hall of Fame.
Yeah, remarkable. So an incredible year for Willie, 77.
Oh yes, and that photo is just so fly. That's such a cool. I mean, I would never imagine myself wearing that jacket in 2020, but I mean, it's such a cool jacket,
Willie can wear it and get away with it.
without a doubt. So you knew of the album, but you are not familiar with this. So okay,
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive thing. Like I'd forgotten the year, but certainly, Mama, don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. In that same year, and also, but Stardust, the title of the album, I remember, and I think he may have even had a hit with the song Stardust. Is there a song called Stardust on there?
oh yes,
I think that was released as a single. I could be wrong, but we're off the top. We're shooting live here.
right. So that's
Uh,
pick number
so
three.
really good, Mike.
Absolutely,
Should I dig in?
I think so.
All right. So
Feed me the wealth of music.
now this one's a bit of a cheat because I saw you in your vinyl countdown as one of your records that you would recommend. And do you remember what you recommended as the album that you would recommend?
Are you talking about the Vinyl Tag Quarantine Edition?
Yes, I am.
Yes, I recommended Emmylou Harris's Elite Hotel.
This
Aha.
lady.
Pieces
So
of,
do you have this album?
I do not. It's one I've been wanting.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Now this is just fantastic. Emmylou Harris, and the song here is Boulder to Birmingham. Have you seen the YouTube performance with her and gosh, I forget his name, the Silverhead, Albert Lee, as playing guitar for her. It's just beautiful, and it features a young Emmylou. So, seriously, one of the most beautiful ladies in music in any genre.
Agreed.
And what a talent she was. Of course, Emmylou performed the role somewhat of muse to, of course, the late, great Graham Parsons. So, and of course, the song, the hit here, Boulder to Birmingham, which has kind of become her signature song, but there is a video of her singing it on YouTube with Albert Lee. So I need to get that link to you somehow, or maybe get it so we can put it in description for this when you upload it. I'd love people to see it. It's just so beautifully, emotionally performed. Such an emotional song and such a beautiful song. And it's dedicated to Graham, who died in 1973, of course, out at Joshua Tree at a motel, which has become kind of a pilgrimage. Speaking of that contest of mine, that people go to that motel, and I think Graham was in room number 8 out there. So, and then of course the story, the subsequent story of his removal from the funeral home, because he said he wanted to be cremated, have his ashes laid to rest at Red Rocks, it's Colorado, out at Joshua Tree. Well, his manager stole his body from the morgue, took him out into the desert, lit the body on fire with gasoline, but it was a botched job. It's just horrific. They ended up recovering Graham's remains, and or Graham, I guess people pronounce it. He spells it Graham, and I kind of like saying Graham. So,
I did not know that. I did not know that.
But anyway, so this is a beautiful album. The name of the album is Pieces of the Sky, and I believe this is 1977. I could be wrong about that. I should have written the date down. But I think if I say 77, I think I'm around the right time for it. So Emmylou Harris. So recommended to you because you had mentioned that the other one is from her. is an album that you would recommend for all of us?
And I'll tell you, Emmylou Harris is one of the best vocalists in country music next to Dolly Parton, in my opinion.
I put her above Dolly for me, but you know, your mileage may vary. And of course, this is the beauty of music. We all have different likes and tastes. Like I always put up, you know, my brain flies off, but I'm thinking of, I got her up here. Don't know what it is. You started something, but can't you see? You know, Dusty Springfield.
Oh, there you
Dusty's
go.
my favorite overall, and then Emmylou is my favorite country artist. I'm big fan of Emmylou.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to do a video maybe on best female vocalist because Karen Carpenter would be in there, Julie London. There's a whole bunch of people.
Karen's lovely, yeah. Okay, so what do you got up for me next?
All right, so this is an artist that actually started and really got her career taken off because of her performance at Woodstock.
Ooh, okay, hold it. Don't tell me. Let me guess. Performance at Woodstock, female performance.
Yes.
Oh,
And it's not Janis Joplin.
yeah. Well, yeah, but gosh, ah, no, Sue, stop. Sue's jumping in, giving suggestions. Mike just said it wasn't Janice. Okay, so you tell me and I'll go, oh, yeah, duh. Go ahead.
This is the 1970 album by Melanie.
Oh, Melanie. I got a brand new pair of roller skates and you got a brand new key.
Yep, that's her. This is her 1970 album, Candles in the Rain, on the really cool Buddha label. That's upside down, but you know what I'm going for here.
Very cool.
And the song Lay Down Candles in the Rain is what she performed at Woodstock. And it's the #1 hit single on this album and was Melanie's first top 10 single that was released. Now, there was a 3-minute, 4-minute version of this album, and then a 7 to 8-minute version of this song. I love both versions. Both are fantastic in their own right. And she ended up putting this on her album based on the great crowd reception that she got during.
Yeah. See, I should have known that. But you know what? In all honesty, it's been years since I saw any of the Woodstock footage other than Jimi Hendrix doing the Star Spangled Banner, which appears from time to time in different spots.
Right. And I just
now, sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add that I also like the song that she did called Look What They Done to My Song Ma. I always like that song.
Yeah, that's Look What They've Done to My Song Ma. Look what they've done to me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, that came out on her next studio album called Gather Me, which is also the same album that the song Brand New Key came off of.
Okay, yeah.
But I was showing off before you asked the question. I love this gatefold.
Yes, lovely.
And the inside has a bunch of lyrics in it. Very fun. This is one of the albums that was introduced to me from my grandfather. But it's interesting. I was introduced to Melanie through a comp album called Freedom that had Lay Down Candles in the Rain on it. And then later I ended up getting 3 of her studio albums from him as well. And I was just like, wow, this is great. And it was some of the earliest stuff I got from my grandfather's collection, which the stuff that I got early on in his collection has even more of a special meaning than the later stuff, even though it all has the same importance, because I actually got to communicate and talk to him more about the stuff I got at the beginning. But yeah, also some other notable songs rather than Lay Down Candles in the Rain would be her covers of the songs Caroline on My Mind, which was originally James Taylor, and Ruby Tuesday by Rolling Stone.
Yeah.
The Ruby Tuesday cover ended up being a hit for her also as well. Actually, Look What They've Done to My Song Ma. I just said that was off of the album Gather Me. I'm full of crap. That's on this album too.
Well, then you're 100% correct. It is an album I would like, Mike.
Yes, that's the last song on side A of this album. So that's my mistake. And then there's also a well-known song by her called Leftover Wine, which is a very good tune. And that was the last song on this album, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. And the next album that she released was a live album that would be of the same title. And she does a beautiful live version of the Leftover Wine song as well. So
yeah.
Melanie, Candles in the Rain.
Yeah, Bullseye. Yeah, totally, I like that. And of course, I like Dave Brubeck. So as far as I'm concerned, you're scoring 100% here with me,
Yes.
with the albums that you think I would like.
Yeah. And I mean, lay down, lay down, lay it all down on the white. Oh, just fantastic.
That's awesome. You got a
Who's,
good singing voice.
thank you. I mean, you've heard some of my covers that I've posted on YouTube.
You know, I haven't. Those are older, and I think you and I connected like a month and a half ago or something in our history. So I must, you know, full disclosure, I need to go back and look, because I do know you're my guitar player. I should at least
Oh,
take
yeah.
the time and look back at some of your music, because you haven't played the guitar in any recent videos or the last
You
month
know,
or anything.
it's been about a year since I've posted a music oriented one, but I am working on a cover or two, which when we're off camera, I could perform for you if you'd like. But yeah, there are a handful of songs I could say are freaking fantastic, but like Lay Down Candles in the Rain.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you so much, Mike. Okay, I'll go and grab another one.
fantastic.
Okay, I got, see, because the thing was we're going to do 5. Now, I think I'm coming up to number 5 now. So, you know, and I've got a couple extras here, but how are we for time right now?
Time is unlimited. I don't care how long these last because
Okay.
collabs are fun. I like seeing how these go. So length is not really a problem. And I don't have anything else scheduled today until later in the evening. So we are more than okay.
All righty. See who I have here?
Year of the Cat. Okay.
Do you have that album?
No, it's one that I've almost grabbed in the past, but I had to put it down for something else or whatever reason. This has been recommended to me by other people before, and I've seen it, and I've sampled the album, and it's been one that I've been interested in grabbing. I don't know it well, but of the little bit of samples I've heard, I love it. So I look forward to what you have to say about it.
Well, it's a wonderful album. It's one of my favorites. It's beautifully produced. I want to tell you one thing about this is if you're looking for beautiful sounding, high quality production, this, of course, Glyn Johns of Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon fame, and Glyn Johns also worked on Abbey Road, so high credentials indeed. In fact, I think it's, sorry, I'm going to pull this out here and make sure I got that right. Glyn Johns. I want to say Glyn Johns, but who did Eye in the Sky? That's who I think did that. Alan Parsons. It's Alan Parsons. It's Alan Parsons is all over that, not Glyn Johns, although Glyn Johns maybe too. I should have researched this one beforehand. But anyway, let's get to the music. I believe, anyway, it's beautifully produced. That's the main point. And yeah, okay. Let's get the songs out of here. I'll open her up. Lord Grenville hit, On the Border hit. If It Doesn't Come Naturally, Leave It hit. Flying Sorcery hit. Year of the Cat hit and a double hit. So it's a gorgeous, just an absolutely gorgeous, melodic, beautiful album. And again, if you like the Beatles, it's very strong on melody, tons of hooks in it. Year of the Cat itself, the title song, carries a real story.
Okay. Well, you know how I love stuff that share a story.
You're story driven. You're story and the songwriter, the singer songwriter. So then interesting anecdote about Year of the Cat. Now this is when I call it boy world, you know, before I transition, come Richie the music ma'am. You know, I was living in boy world. So I'm tall. I'm like 6'1". So I go to a bar because Al Stewart's playing Year of the Cat. So I'm going in all ready to hear, you know, his beautiful melodic, elevated, cultured music. And I get like shoulder shot by some guy as I'm trying to make it to the stage. So I'm like, oh my God. So boy world can be an awful place sometimes. Anyway, I made it to the stage and I was able to see Al Stewart, but it was the worst venue ever for him to be playing at. There was like bikers and all sorts of stuff. It was just like the wrong venue. This guy's almost like semi-classical. He kind of brings out all this beautiful culture. He's got a lilting Scottish voice, and just so melodic, so beautiful. But yeah, Year of the Cat. So again, this is one I highly recommend. I think you'd like it.
I think I'll like it too.
You're up.
Okay, now this one is the one I'm most excited to show you.
Okay.
Because you love genealogy.
I do love genealogy.
And even though, due to false genealogy, as this artist later finds out, it was genealogy that ended up inspiring the creation of this album.
Okay.
So this is the 1964 concept album by Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash's 20th album release, Bitter Tears, Ballads of the American Indian.
Very good.
Are you familiar at all?
I've seen the album, and it's been shown. Did you show it, or I've seen somebody else show it in the VC?
Me and Jam on Vinyl have both shown this before. And actually, Jam on Vinyl is how I got this copy. So this album.
So yeah, it could have been Mike then, over at Jam on Vinyl, right?
Yeah, because we both have shown this before. So this is one of Cash's Americana albums that focuses on the history of the Native Americans, specifically on their problems. The harshness and unfair treatment of the indigenous people by the incoming Europeans that were coming, and how it affected the specifically Seneca and Pima peoples. I'm not sure if I'm saying those tribes or peoples right, but
Seneca, I believe you are for sure. That's Florida area, isn't it?
The Pima, Arizona.
Oh, okay. Seneca, I think, makes me think, or Seminole. That's who I'm thinking of.
Yeah, Seneca is an Iroquoian-speaking people, which I don't know that language. Never even heard of it until I looked them up. And they lived south of Lake Ontario, and the Pima people lived in what is now modern-day central and southern Arizona. And the Pima people, I was actually able to find a little bit more information about. The Pima people were also considered river people. And they coined a term called PMAC. I don't know if that's how I say it right, but it's P-I space M-A-C, which means I don't know, which when Spanish colonists would come to their camps and tribes, they would just repeatedly say PMAC, I don't know. I guess it's because the Spanish people were trying to take their land. I'm not exactly sure the history behind that, but based on how their history is, I could only imagine.
That would certainly put a roadblock up to them, as though if they're seeking information and they don't want to be involved or help somebody that they're perceiving as oppressing them, then certainly that idea would come into play. Like, hey, don't ask me. Or like Sergeant Schultz on the old Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing.
Exactly. And English speakers, traders, explorers, and settlers actually eventually ended up coining that term as well.
Okay.
So Johnny Cash believed that, and this is the one where I have to have most of my notes up because this is the one where there's just so much to share, and I know that you'd love to know it all. So Cash believed that his ancestry was part Cherokee. So the idea of this was one that he felt really close to, and it really inspired him to create this work. But as I said earlier, he learned that Cash was mainly, his ancestry was of the British Isles. But still, he was very excited to put this out, and still was very inspired by the Native American activisms and issues that were concerned around their injustices. So,
what year did Johnny do that album?
This was 64.
64. So he's even earlier than, for a while in the early 70s when they were doing the Billy Jack movies. And I know Elvis did one. There was a lot of Indian themed, because of the Navajo and the reservation system. It was kind of a time for that. But Johnny, as you're showing here by the date release on that album, he predates it. So really interesting, and credit to him for doing so.
Yes, and there's two songs specifically that I really want to talk about. The first one is from this album is the opening track, a song called "As Long as the Grass Shall Grow," which talks about the contemporary loss of the Sakina Indian Native American nation land due to construction that was occurring in the early 1960s. So happening right around the time of this album's creation. And later on, Johnny Cash would end up performing this song on Pete Seeger's television show Rainbow Quest, which, for those who don't know who Pete Seeger was, he was an American folk singer and social activist, so it fits in perfectly. And Cash did that. Later on, he would do another version of the song because when he ended up partnering up with Rick Rubin for the American Recording Series on the American 2 album, which is also known as Unearthed, he recorded that song again, As Long as the Grass Shall Grow, but he changed up the lyrics to express his love and devotion to June Carter Cash, his wife.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And they actually did it as a duet, and it was one of the final duets that the duo actually recorded together, which that was 1966, I believe that album came out. So it was only a handful of years later until they both passed in 2003, only a couple of months apart from each other. But that was a great way to end their duetting history together, would be with sharing their love and devotion for each other. And then the big hit from this album, which is what opens up side B, which I have a very special attachment to because it was one of the first songs I ever learned about Johnny Cash when I was discovering the hits of Cash when my grandfather first introduced me to Johnny Cash, which I don't know if you know this story, but he's the first artist that my grandfather ever introduced me to when I was in middle school. So
I do know that story because I was very privileged to exchange a very nice email, discussion with yourself where we went down kind of background on things. So I was very curious about your relationship with your grandfather, not the least a bit because of the fact that he passed his collection on to you, which, what a treasure, and shows how much love he had because clearly he loved music. And once he saw in his grandson that similar love, to bestow that upon you showed great trust and affection.
Oh yes, that for a moment that slipped my mind that I sent you that. So yes, absolutely. But the Ballad of Ira Hayes. So this talks about, you guessed it, Ira Hayes, and he was a young Marine of the Pima descendants who participated in the flag raising on Iwo Jima, which was a Japanese volcano island, and this all happened during World War II. Now, I don't know the whole history of World War II or Iwo Jima, so I don't exactly know the whole resemblance of the flag raising. However, I know that it was a significant part, and Ira Hayes got celebrity status after this historic event, and he was photographed doing it the whole 9 yards. However, after the post-war years, he ended up struggling with life because he ended up going back, and he was struggling even on the way back home. And then he got back to his Gala River reservation and discovered that the U.S. government had built a dam that moved all of or most of the reservation's water supply into a different direction, which of course did not help the reservation or the people of that tribe. And his mindset was already fuddled anyway. So he ended up dying of alcoholism and in poverty at the end of the day. Sad way to end, but
yeah, and such an iconic hero.
Yes, and so for the longest time, I've been singing the lyrics to this song since I was in 7th grade. It's like, because the first couple courses, it's the Ballad of Ira Hayes and blah, 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 blah. But then the last verse, and the drunken Ira Hayes, and I'm just like, okay, don't know why they're changing it up, but now I know. Like, so it's very interesting how the music changes. And
very sad.
Yeah. And Johnny Cash faced a lot of backlash for this album, especially by DJs and not so much the general public, but even though this was not one of his most commercially successful albums, due to the fact that it's a concept album and it's about the Native American people, it was not hip and cool in a time where rock and roll was emerging. But he faced a lot of backlash on this due to the nature of it and the censorship that followed. And Johnny Cash actually fought back and called these DJs gutless, specifically for not playing the song Ballad of Ira Hayes. And Johnny Cash would later go on to send around 1,000 copies of just the single to various radio stations across the USA. They ended up playing it, and the song eventually hit number 3 on the Billboard charts. And as of 2010, the song was considered one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. Now, with that said, in this in the VCLT package that Mike from Jam on Vinyl sent with this package, he actually sent me the note that Johnny Cash sent out to the labels and all this stuff, saying that pretty much, how dare you not play my music? How dare you regress what's going on in the world and what's happening? How dare you, kind of thing, and his activism. So it's cool. And of course, Mike is a history teacher, a history buff, and
He
I
sure
enjoyed it.
is.
And he added that, and it was a nice extra touch to the already kind VCLT, because how this VCLT came to be, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in my VCLT video when I got it, but I got this album in August, so you were not part of the VC then, so you might not have ever seen my video of me showing off this album when I first got
I
it.
don't think I did, but I've seen it and I've seen the letters. So you must have talked about it, or Mike may have talked about it.
Yeah, or both of us, but pretty much
In
Mike,
more recent times, I mean.
yeah. And Mike just had a photo on his Instagram page of this album. And I was like, wow, that's one of those albums I've been looking for a long time. He said, I have a stereo and mono press, and I'll send you the stereo one. What's your address? So it was really nice of him.
Yeah, so very kind. Mike's incredible. He's been very supportive to my channel as well. He's makes a point of commenting, and he's a busy guy, you know. But yeah, I have nothing but good things to say. I will just kind of put in here that the flag raising, the reason it's significant is the Allies needed to win the battle over at Iwo Jima. And so the mountain there was called Suribachi. And Clint Eastwood did a movie called Flags of Our Fathers, which covers the story of Ira. But the mountain, the Mount Suribachi, because it's a volcanic, desolate place, horrible, just a killing field. Many, many people died there. Both our guys and I say ours, America is me, America, I love you. But, you know, against the Japanese there. The mountain was taken, but the battle wasn't over yet, and the Americans were able to raise the flag, and it gave hope to the troops because they could see the flag for all the way around this small island. And of course, it was so strategically important because once you could take over Iwo Jima and Tarawa and these islands, then we were able to build bases with which we could then attack the Japanese homeland and effectively bring the war to its conclusion. So the battle wasn't over, but the American flag was still raised. So kind of like the lyric, you know, that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. And it's that kind of patriotism, that seeing the flag, like we were going to win this thing. Stirring stuff, Mike, stirring. Oh, gets me going. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're perfectly fine. I knew that both based on the genealogy of Johnny Cash thinking that he was part Cherokee on top of the historical value. I figured of all these albums, that's the one that may have been most exciting to you. So.
Well, it just to honor the man's Ira Hayes memory, like Johnny did, is tremendous. And I will add another anecdote. I saw Johnny and June Carter Cash at a Billy Graham crusade around 1989 or so. So, no, I'm sorry, 1979. So it was around 79, 80 that I saw Johnny and June in Calgary. And of course they did gospel numbers, but just the fact that I was able to see him perform, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, because that's around the time that he released his album Silver, which featured the big hit Ghost Riders in the Sky.
Oh, great song, yeah.
One of my favorite Cash tunes.
Yeah, did Dwayne Eddy do that first? I know it's an older song, but
I'm not sure. There was a time where I knew the history of who did what versions of that song at a time, but I truly can't remember. But I believe that Johnny Cash's was the most well-known version of that.
Yeah, well, and of course, it's fun. Another Johnny anecdote is in the 60s, my mom and dad ordered all these Columbia Record Club stuff, but frequently the wrong record would arrive. They'd, you know, you'd put a little check mark and said, okay, this is the one I want. And the company didn't really seem to care. We got a lot of records that they never wanted. But one of them was Johnny Cash television show. On LP, but songs from the show, you know, hello everybody, I'm Johnny Cash, the way Johnny would open a show, which I watch all the time. So I was the only Johnny Cash fan in the family. My mom was a little prejudiced against Johnny because in the 1950s, My mom was working at a little restaurant, a cafe diner in Penticton, British Columbia, up here on the west coast of Canada, kind of thing, and well, the interior of the province. But I digress. But Johnny was in with his band, and I guess the small town, they were going to impress the locals. So one of the band members, hey Johnny, you're in the paper here on the front page. And my mom thought, oh, they think they're so big, Hollywood types or big music stars sort of thing. So my mom was not a fan, but I was. So yeah, bless Johnny Cash for sure.
Without a doubt. And I just rewatched the movie Walk the Line the other day and relearned some of his beginnings. And I'm telling you, he was struggling at first. So he rightfully so should be. I mean, Johnny Cash isn't the kind of person to boast or brag really, but he really deserved what credit he got.
He had a rough life. I mean, it's a performance thing. He was the same story as the Beatles in so much that, you take your uppers to perform at night because you got to keep going. And then downers, oh man, I'm so up and wired, I got to get to sleep. And so you get into that vicious cycle. And of course, alcohol is part of the scene. You're playing bars and, it kind of comes with the territory. So his is a real survivor's story. A lot of respect for Johnny Cash and genuine affection.
Yep, and Johnny Cash was busted, pun because of the song, and also he beat the devil, also another pun because that's another name of his song. So it worked out in his favor.
Yeah, very true, Mike. Absolutely. Should I do another one here?
Yeah, let's do the honorable mentions.
Okay, we'll do the honorables. Wow, gosh, I got to introduce this one. Let's take the plastic. You recognize this, and I hope you have a copy.
I have a digital copy. This is the one that I know so far. Like, I've actually heard in its entirety.
Yeah, this is T-Rex, Mark Bolan, Electric Warrior. Let's get Mark going here.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
This is great. This is the beauty of albums versus CD format. It's big and bold. I tell people, and I've mentioned this frequently on my channel, this is the coolest rock album cover that I've ever seen to this very day. I mean, I just love this thing. But I'm glad you got it on digital, so it's not unfamiliar to you. The movie Billy Elliot opened up with the beautiful Cosmic Dancer, which comes from that album. Of course, Bang a Gone became a great hit, just kind of an e-boogie chord with that. It just trudges along. It's just so good. And so if you've got that teenage kind of, since you have it on digital, is this one you like?
I do enjoy it. It's not one that I want to listen to regularly, but
that's it. Mike, we're done.
No, but I'm telling you, I know it's one of your favorites, but I'll tell you. But the reason why I don't want to listen to it so often is because it was first of all, it was such a great album. It was one that I enjoyed every moment of, and it was one of those albums that I want to experience it every time I do it, so I don't want to overplay it.
A fair answer, a fair and just answer. But yeah, Electric Warrior, that was my honorable mention. And one other, Beatles Jr., is Badfinger's Magic Christian Music, which has got Come and Get It on it. And what else have we got here? Carry On Till Tomorrow is a little bit of a rocker. It's gentle and stuff, and maybe Tomorrow is good, but yeah, very melodic stuff. So Badfinger would be another pick for you.
Yes.
Okay.
I only know that album, the Badfinger one, only because of you showing it, but I've not heard that album by Badfinger. I have a studio album and a greatest hits album digitally from one of my dad's friends, but I have not gotten the chance to listen to it yet. And then I saw Melinda Murphy and I think Marican showed the studio album that I got, and I'm just like, all right, I got to actually listen to this now. So I still haven't, but I need to do it. And I also need to check out that one now too.
Strong on melody, Mike, really strong on melody. So if you like melody and hooks in your music, and Pete Ham, who was the main songwriter for the group, did Without You, which Harry Nilsson covered, just beautiful song, but very gifted. And of course, the Badfinger story is a byword in bad management affecting the lives of the exploited musician. Legendary in the worst way, infamous, really. So that's it. What do you got extra for me?
I have one final album release for you, and this is a comp album, so hopefully it's not cheating, but oh well. So I think that you would really enjoy this. I'm sure you know the music if you don't know this specific release. Charlie Brown, Holiday Hits, the Vince Guaraldi Trio. No one loves Charlie Brown quite like you in a BC.
I love Charlie Brown. I played Linus in a school play of The Great Pumpkin back when I was like in grade 3. So I guess I would have been 8 years old back in the day. I loved the Charlie Brown. I had all the books and the whole bit. And of course, the music from the Charlie Brown Christmas. And keep in mind that Charlie Brown Christmas debuts, I think, around 1965, 66. So I'm 7 and 8 years old when it comes out. So I'm the prime age for all of that stuff, that came out because of my generation, right?
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you mentioned the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. The Great Pumpkin Waltz is featured on this. I believe it's the only song that's featured from the Great Pumpkin movie, or a short episode, whatever you want to call it. And then there's Christmas Time is Here, both instrumental and vocal from the Christmas special, and then the Thanksgiving theme from the Thanksgiving episode. And then pretty much all the others are pretty much fairly generic stuff they hear in like most episodes, like Linus and Lucy, Cool Joe, Heartburn Waltz, and all that. So
have they got the main Christmas one, that jazzy piano piece that was just, it was kind of a bit of a hit, I think.
That's not on this one, but it is on the that's Linus and Lucy.
Is that what that's called?
Yeah, that's Linus and Lucy. That's the pretty much Charlie Brown theme that everybody knows, which I could play that on piano too. It was one of the first things I ever learned.
I gotta get myself back.
We lasted a good while though. It wasn't like going off every couple minutes, but that's good. But yeah, I could actually play that Charlie Brown song that you just on piano. It was one of the first I learned. So
well, the jury's out on me anyway, Mike. I mean, it's debatable whether I ever grew up. So I still love Charlie Brown. I love these mementos from my youth. I think if you look in my thing, there's a G.I. Joe back there somewhere. In the case, and all these things. It's just kind of fun. Oh, and my American flags are up there.
Oh yeah, sporting my people.
Yeah, I got a little my sister is in Colorado, so, and of course I've got ancestry all over Pittsburgh. Not Pennsylvania specifically, in Germantown, which is I think like a suburb of Philadelphia, and Gettysburg. So I have ancestors fought in the American Revolution and also in the for the Union cause in the American Civil War. So lots of German, Dutch, German, Pennsylvanian ancestry there. So USA, USA.
Philadelphia is about 2.5, 3 hours away from me, so I'm right by there.
Yeah, because I mean, up in that northeast corner of the U.S., you got all those small states packed in, and you can be in Maryland from New York, like in the snap of a finger, sort of thing.
It's actually interesting. I heard a joke the other day of someone whoever, even though this is obviously not how it happened, but the person who was creating the United States, they were like, "Oh, you have this platform. You're able to make states however big or small you want." So they started on the left-hand side with California, the big states, la, 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 la. And then they were told they have to make 50 of them. So as they get further and further east and they go northeast, the person's like, oh shit, and making a bunch of smaller ones.
Yeah, we're running out of room.
I mean, obviously we all know that that's not how it happened, but that was a funny meme joke that I saw.
It's clever.
It's great.
Yeah. Well, listen, Mike, thank you so much for hosting me for this thing. Just really appreciate your channel, and music has got a great bright future. Again, the vinyl community with people like yourself and Emma and Dylan, the record spinner, and American, just so many great young people that are leading the charge.
Absolutely, and I'm glad to have had you, and who knows, maybe we'll make a video on your channel in the future. I always enjoy your stuff too.
Thank you.
Because I remember when I first was introduced to your channel, because Rod the Happy Hippie gave you a shout out, and I was like, well, who the heck is Rachel the Music Man?
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So then I discovered you, and I may have been within the first 100 subs, if not less. I don't remember.
Very possibly, Mike. And Rod have been a great friend to my channel as well. I mean, Rod's a great friend to the vinyl community just because he's commenting all over. I travel around. I try and comment on everybody's stuff as best as I'm able, and I see Rod frequently in the comments category.
Oh yes, without a doubt. So
Yeah.
that was 5 albums that both me and Rachel thought that we both would respectively like from the other end.
You
And
scored high marks.
yes, and who knows? Hopefully you guys, if you didn't know any of these albums, hopefully you guys check them out, because I mean, obviously we curated this for each other, but music is universal, y'all. So anyway, thanks once again to Rachel for joining me. Thank you guys for watching. Keep on spinning that wax, and I will see you in the next vinyl record video.